right. You the better half of the.
No,
I
no.
was gonna ask, should I?
No, wait a minute, I didn't say that. Now you can,
I'll call Mary right after.
Like I said, be careful, we're on the air now. Mark, if I can invite you to stand up at the podium. And let's make sure we get your whole self.
Okay,
You're looking good.
all right,
Thank you.
okay. And I won't go running around the stage.
Yeah, good. Actually, you could, and we would get it all, so. Because it goes as far as the piano.
Oh, yeah, that's a good shot.
Welcome, folks, to the UU service. Enjoy. Well, so far, so good.
Good,
I haven't
good.
fallen over and dropped the computer.
Okay, super.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Do you know
I've been involved with the social justice. So,
Not for sure. Well, are you connected to it?
but all by.
Can you go to YouTube someplace? Or do you go to
Thank God it's there. But, oh
YouTube? Of course, that didn't get written in the instructions.
Well, I
wonder if you go to UUFDC. Because I think there's a link to the service on UUFDC. Okay. Possibly.
Well, imagine teaching. For students. Now, I have a mentor that I've been in and four of us, three other people. So we know each other really well. Once a week. And Zoom weren't there, which is great because there's a strong relationship. We know each other. We've actually adapted to that. That was very established, the relationships were there. But, especially for somebody new or in a situation like they were
Oh my gosh, I didn't even shut up. You had a coat on. Oh, look, you got turned around. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Right.
My little was over there. This inspires me, but I don't have So you're able to go
You think it'll be real?
I did, so that's the great thing about it. So we have to get Let's pass this on. Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yeah, I did last year. I'm sorry, I raised that. Talk about linen. Oh my God. I'm sure that is hard. We've done some serious stuff.
You know, it's like nothing.
Just
With the tipping.
yeah,
It's been, I haven't read it since.
yeah.
Because it's always
So, you know, it's all one piece. It's woven in all one piece. There's no seams here. So it was, I've never done that. I won't come out first. I don't worry about
well. Yeah. Oh, that's the southwest part of Wisconsin. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the reason it's called the driftless is in the 3 or 4 ice ages that have covered Wisconsin, the ice as thick as a foot, and every single one of the ice flowed around that region. That's why you have those very steep.
Yeah, he was probably not wrong.
So it's southwest Wisconsin and a little bit of Iowa. Yeah.
I've never been.
Hi. No, I live here. I don't go to that.
Let's just see.
We're here.
Scratching the city, find out just we want to think
Oh, yeah, I did that. I got my iPad today too.
If every woman in the world had her mind set on freedom, if every woman in the world dreamed a sweet dream of peace, if every woman of every nation, young and old, each generation, held her hands out in the name of love, there would be no war. Every man in his mind set on freedom. If every brother stood with brother as a witness for peace, if every man of every nation, young and old, each generation, held his hands out in the name of love, there would be no war. If every leader in every nation shared a vision of freedom, if every leader in the world shared a vision of peace, if every leader of every nation works for justice and liberation, holding hands out in the name of love, there would be no war. If every nation in the world set a true course for freedom, if every nation raised its children in a culture of peace, if all our sons and all our daughters reached in friendship across the waters, refusing to be enemies, there would be no more. Hold your hands up in the name of love, there will be no more.
Thank you, Colin and Cindy. I heard Cindy practicing this before the service, and I told her it wasn't fair because it makes me cry. It was beautiful, just beautiful. So, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. My name is Cindy Nelson, and it is my privilege to welcome you and to be your service leader today. And a warm welcome to our members, friends, and visitors who may be with us in spirit, but joining us from afar. We bid you welcome, who come with weary spirits seeking rest, who come with troubles, who come with hurt, who come with fear. We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart, who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous. We bid you welcome, who are seekers of a new faith, who come to probe, to learn, to explore. We bid you welcome, who enter our sanctuary as a homecoming, who have found here room for your spirit, who see us as a family. We bid you welcome, whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey. It's been our practice to invite visitors to stand and introduce yourselves if you are comfortable doing so. We are delighted to have you with us. Do we have any visitors that would like to introduce today? Okay, well, we welcome all of you here to be with us. A few minor housekeeping details. Please raise your hand if at any time you're having difficulty hearing. Marilyn will be monitoring the sound system, and we want to make sure you are all comfortable with the sound. Also, please turn off any cell phones or other devices that may make noise. And thirdly, because of COVID and our continued care for each other, the collection offering baskets are not being passed around. It doesn't mean we don't need your money, however. There are 2 baskets in the foyer for you to help us financially, or of course you can donate online. And finally, thank you all for following our mask policy. We appreciate it very much. At this time, if we have any announcements for the good of the fellowship, Karen has the mic and we'll bring it around for you to speak into, but not to hold. Any announcements?
Yours over here. Oh, okay. Maybe next.
Good morning, I'm Gloria Doherty, and I'm here on behalf of Door County Public Health And on March 10th, there will be a vaccine clinic again in Sister Bay at the fire station, in the afternoon, 2 to 5. Walk-ins are welcome. I know everybody is vaccinated. However, there are still a surprising number of people in northern Door County who have not yet had booster shots, and those are available. And there are also a large number of our children who are not vaccinated. And the vaccines will be available ages 5 and up and boosters age 12 and up. No appointments are necessary. Thank you. Spread the word.
Thanks, Gloria. Any other announcements for Karen? I'm very much looking forward to our message today. Mark Taylor is a new transplant to Door County, having arrived in 2021 in the midst of the pandemic. So he shares that he is still trying to find his community. Meantime, he has a number of do-it-yourself projects going on, including a workshop and a greenhouse. And he will be part of the seed library that has been started in Door County. Mark's message is, and I quote, "The practical application of Buddhism, much like a toolbox," end quote. So thank you, Mark, for being our speaker today. On that note, let us light our chalice and begin our service. With words from the Buddha. Every morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. Please stand as you are able to say the unison affirmation and to hum the doxology. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. Before we begin our joys and concerns for our own community, I'd like us to take a moment to reflect on the seriousness of the invasion into Ukraine. Let us send healing and peace-filled thoughts to the Ukrainian people and to the Russian people who are demonstrating on their behalf. Please open your order of service and join with me in reciting, "If there is to be peace." If you would read the bold parts, I will read the other. If there is to be peace. If there is to be peace in the world,
There must be peace in the nations.
if there is to be peace in the nations,
There must be peace in the cities.
if there is to be peace in the cities,
There must be peace between neighbors.
if there is to be peace between neighbors,
There must be peace in the home.
if there is to be peace in the home,
There must be peace in the heart.
Thank you. And now to share our personal joys and concerns, such an integral part of our community. Together, we share the happiness so that we may rejoice with each other, and the sorrow because together we can lessen the burden. Any joys and concerns? Again, Karen has the mic.
Yeah, just following on to your sentiments,
the world has seen too much from the forces of dark and evil the last several years. And so it's really a joy to see the beacon of light that is President Zelensky.
This is under joy, and to add on to what Cindy said about our guest speaker this morning, Mark Taylor, who's been hanging around with us a little bit lately. He has joined the environmental justice team, and as an add-on to the SEED project, he has completed packing 2,500 of 7,500 packages, which includes not just distributing it to the library. This is the neat part. Because it fits with our social justice effort, is that he's working with Door County Health and Human Services to make that also available to the clients who come there and to support food sustainability. So thank you for hanging with us, Mark.
Any other announcements or joys and concerns? Please take a moment of quiet to prepare yourselves for the message Mark is about to give us. Our reading is called Listening by Reverend Richard Gilbert. Listen. Listen to what others have to say. There is wisdom in all you meet. Listen to the sounds of nature. It speaks and sings and makes music for those who pay attention. Listen. Listen to the impulses of your spirit. Take time to hear your inner yearnings, that still, small voice drowned in the raucous shout. Listen. This is a noisy world. Perhaps today we can listen.
Those readings were great. Wonderful. Yeah, this week, just think 1 week ago right now, this hadn't happened. And since then, the terror and the violence that has, forgot to take my mask off. The terror and violence that is now stalking the people of Ukraine, and the courageous war protesters in Russia. If we progressives had a fraction of that courage, how could things be different? This week is a reminder that all that we know, all that we experience, all that we have is ephemeral. And it can be gone like that. I want to share a story with you. Admittedly, not my finest hour as a grandson or a human being. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, Charmian, had fallen and broken her hip and was in extended care facility. And I hadn't seen her in a while, so I went one night to see her. And it was shortly before she died. And she was like this little bundle of bones, shock of white hair. And she could barely speak. So we were talking, and she said to me, she paused and she said to me, you know, Mark, on the inside, I'm still 21. Now, this is the shameful part. I didn't say this out loud, but in my head, I said to myself, you ain't no 21, sister. A colleague of mine, when I told him that story, said, the devil scraped out a new lower level of hell for you. But at 69, I now understand what she was saying. How can this be so? I think from a Buddhist perspective, that we live our lives not truly present. In fact, for most of our lives, we are here, but our mind is over there. And I was struck by that as I was driving, coming into Ephraim on the drive here. And I noticed, you know, the old firehouse that they had, I love those stone towers. And out of the chatter going on inside my head, I suddenly saw those towers. And I saw how beautiful they were in the shadow and the light on it. And I thought of the craftsmen who built it however many generations ago. And then my mind went off somewhere else. We're not truly present. And so when we come to the end of our lives, it's like, well, what happened? How did I get to this point? I need to make a disclaimer up front. I am no Buddhist scholar. I have gleaned and harvested out of Buddhism things that were very helpful and applicable in my previous work as a psychotherapist. What I love about Buddhism is its practicality. It really looks at what works and casts aside what doesn't work. I credit my son, Seth, for introducing me to a lot of Buddhism. Beginning at the age of 18, he started living in Southeast Asia. Lived in Korea, China for a while. He was in Vietnam, Taiwan. And he was always sending me stuff and photos from different temples and so on that he visited. I worked for 25 years in several hospital systems. Initially, I worked primarily with adolescents. As I got older, I no longer could understand the world they were in. So I, towards the end of my career, worked with adults primarily, but also a lot of parents of children. And really, Buddhism was one of the most helpful things to me in that work. The need now is great. I've got a colleague, the one who said that the devil was scraping out a new level of hell for me. He is 30 years an instructor and former director of counseling at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Student population of 5,300. They've had 7 suicides since the beginning of the school year. They had 1 death from an epileptic seizure, which I'm guessing, I don't know, might well have been triggered by stress, anxiety. And just this past week, the student head of the newly formed mental health committee that had been formed to address the issue attempted suicide. We've got an addiction crisis. Overdose deaths are just skyrocketing. We've got escalating rates of domestic violence, murder. And we wonder, how did a war come about? How did a war not come about? We've been at war. So, said of Buddhism, it's the most psychological of the religions and the most religious of the psychologies. And I think that's absolutely right. It's very useful in the here and now. And while, yes, there's talk of reincarnation, the primary focus is on being present in this moment and being fully aware on all levels as much as possible. Understanding, of course, will flip out of that, as I did in my short drive through Ephraim. This is not about ignoring or shutting off problems, but instead a way to be aware and anchored in what truly is here and now. The Dalai Lama said of Buddhism, he was being interviewed, and the interviewer was asking him about, well, how doctrinaire is it, and so on. And of course, we've seen a lot of fundamentalist religions, an adherence to belief, no matter what the evidence may be. And the Dalai Lama thought about it for a moment, and then he said, if it was proven that reincarnation was not possible, we would accept that, and we would throw out the teachings of reincarnation, and then we would adapt to the new reality. That's the practicality of Buddhism. Let's do just, I've only got a few minutes, but let's just take a moment. I would like you to sit in quiet, eyes open or closed, whichever you prefer. And just sit within your body and your soul. You scan the body. Can your mind silence itself? Notice the breath. Taking a nice deep breath and release. And open. So I'm going to share with you 4 tools from Buddhism that I used in the therapy work and use in my personal life. And I'll be the first to admit, it's a hell of a challenge for me. It really is. The first one is to become the observer of the self, to be truly present. As I came into Ephraim and I saw that beautiful stonework on the firehouse, and I noticed the blue sky, and I looked over and saw the lake and so on. But to be truly present with and interacting with the world around you. And one of the wonderful things about doing that is that can open us to the Buddhist teaching of metta, M-E-T-T-A, which is loving kindness. If we pay attention to ourselves and our experience in the present moment, we inevitably notice others around us and can begin to connect more. And from that is empathy. Empathy is different than sympathy. Sympathy is, oh, poor you, I'm sorry that happened to you. Empathy is, it sounds like it was very painful. And as we do that, that is loving kindness, metta, connection. Second teaching that I used from Buddhism, and this is one that this culture absolutely hates. It's radical acceptance. Now, in Buddhism, they speak of samsara, that the nature of life, the nature of the world, is one of life, death, rebirth, without beginning or end, and directed by karma. So kind of you reap what you sow. So whatever you have sown in this lifetime, you will reap in the next lifetime. Now, radical acceptance is not the acceptance of, gee whiz, I guess it's a really bad situation. There's nothing I can do. I guess I just have to put up with it. No. Radical acceptance is to truly accept that the situation is as bad as it is. No shining, no euphemisms. I've told my son when I die to never use the word passing. My dad died. That's what I want him to say. Okay? That's radical acceptance. Most of the clients I would work with had been cycling in and out of therapy, self-help groups, and so on, in some cases for decades, because they were not accepting the thing that was lying right before them. So the family it might be that mommy's an alcoholic or daddy is sexually abusive. We come up with all kinds of euphemisms for that. Without going into the whole thing of my family history, I remember when I was working with my first therapist for my own personal work, and I was telling some story about my father and kind of, excusing his behavior, minimizing it. And I'll never forget, my therapist said, "Mark, your father was abusive." And my reaction, "Oh, no, he was working a lot, he worked a lot of hours and, blah, blah." And she said, "Mark, he was abusive." And when she said that, it cut through all the BS I'd been telling myself and the family had been telling itself over the years. When we do radical acceptance, the gift that comes out of that, it's a very hard thing to do, but the gift that comes out of it is now we can begin to address the situation. We can begin to address the problem because we've now properly identified the problem. If we have not properly and thoroughly identified the problem, everything we try to do will fall short. Okay? The third teaching, discerning critical difference between a problem and the problem. And this ties right into radical acceptance. So for example, I might have been working with an adult woman client who had high levels of anxiety. Her anxiety was a problem, and it led to other problems like sleeplessness or migraines, eating disorders, etc. But the problem was that she was in an abusive marriage. And like me, would minimize what was going on in the family. For someone else, they may discover that their alcohol or drug addiction is a problem that leads to lots of other problems like unemployment, medical and financial problems. But the problem is a history of child sexual abuse that has not been addressed. Most of the presenting problems that I saw with my clients were diversions from the problem. This has social and political applications. Our society's preoccupied with lots of A problems. We can write out the list. Childhood poverty, which just went up 41%, by the way. Or student debt, crumbling infrastructure, the climate collapse, isolation, anxiety, and increasing rates of suicide, domestic or governmental violence. Those are all A problems, but they are the result of the problem. The problem, from my perspective, is an economic system that is built on abuse and exploitation. So we can come up with a program for child poverty, but if we don't address the underlying issues that create child poverty, about the best we're doing is, providing meals at school, which is good, but it's not enough. Fourth tool, awareness of the fullness of emotion. So one example is depression. For most of my career as a psychotherapist, it was a second career for me, so I was about 25 years in the mental health field. Initially, the presenting problem for most of my clients was some iteration of depression. By the time I retired in January 2020, it had changed to anxiety. By far, it was the number one presenting issue that clients had. And all of my colleagues at Gunderson Lutheran and La Crosse, we all talked about it. It's like, God, I wish I had a depressed client to work with. I mean, anxiety is just like going through. And of course, we clinicians were anxious too, okay? But understanding the full awareness of an emotion. So going back to depression, if depression were a coin and you were to flip it in the air and catch it, the flip side of the coin would be anger. Anger, depression, they go together. If a client was depressed, I want to know what they were angry about. And if somebody had an anger issue, I want to know what they were depressed about. And so, from a Buddhist perspective, it's sitting with the emotion. God, I'm feeling depressed. What am I really feeling? If you really sit with it, at some point, you're going to start feeling the anger. And the anger will point in the direction of what that is coming from. Now, you can take difficult emotions if you're aware of them, and you can use them positively. So like anger is fuel. Now, if I took a gallon of gasoline and I went home and I sprayed it around my living room and put a match to it, I could burn my house down. Okay, it worked very efficiently doing that. Or I could take that same gallon of gasoline, put it in a chainsaw and cut up enough firewood to heat my house for the winter. Same amount of BTUs, but it's how it's been directed and used. Becoming aware of the inner landscape of interconnecting emotions, then becoming aware and seeing the choice through being with and acting upon an emotion is one of the central teachings of Buddhism. While we are all individuals, we are all connected in the cycle of samsara. And I don't know what it was like for you, but when Cindy was doing those readings and the song, I felt the tears. I feel them now for the people of Ukraine. That's the connection. We're connected in samsara. Life is complicated. People are complicated. I am complicated. And that's the radical acceptance. We would love to have simple answers and solutions. They aren't out there. We are distinct and unique and connected in an ever-dynamic give and take. Quoting from Thich Nhat Hanh, one of the great Buddhist teachers who died January 22nd of this year. What we most need to do is hear within us the sound of the earth cry. Just apply that to issues of peace, the climate crisis. Whatever we need most to do is hear within us the sound of the earth cry. Thich Nhat Hanh was one of my heroes. He was in Vietnam, Vietnamese monk, opposing the war during the Vietnam War. He was persecuted by both the North Vietnamese, our allies, the South Vietnamese, and us, because he spoke truth. He had to go into exile in France, where he established Plum Village, a retreat. I thought it was really sweet in a way that he was able to return to Vietnam before he died. In closing, I wanted to share a poem from a Tom Hartman column this past week that included a very Buddhist message from classical English literature, and a reminder that, be it refugee camps along the southern border, Afghani children starving in a long winter, or Ukrainian parents now worried about the safety of their children, it all is part of the whole, part of us. From John Donne. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or thine own were. Any man's death diminishes us, or diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. And the church bells in Ukraine are tolling for us as well as them. For those who are interested in exploring some of these issues more, I will be sending out, Sarah will be sending out an email list of readings that you might find of help and interest. And I'll be talking more about this afterwards. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. A lot to think about. Please remember to stay if you choose for a talk back with Mark. I think that he has some other items that he wasn't able to put into his message, and we have a lot of questions for him. So that will begin in about 10 minutes after the service. It takes us about that long to transition into the Zoom mode instead of the whatever mode this one's called. Right? I'm still shook up. So our closing words come from the Reverend Melissa Jutter. We extinguish this chalice today, but we are illuminated by a faith that allows us to sit and think. In this quiet time, we can reflect in solitude, meditating on love, and growing out of our comfort. Though we experience discomfort, we are excited to give birth to a new, just world.
Thank you for attending the service. We'll see you next week. Okay.